Amid protests from Kuki groups, the first session of the Manipur Assembly since the strife broke out is being convened tomorrow. Could this lead to reconciliation or even more tensions? I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. The Biren Singh government in Manipur has called for a special session, or rather a session of the Manipur Assembly, the first such since the strife and the violence broke out in early May. The crisis is now entering its fourth month. Meanwhile, as tensions remain high and the road journey, the highways remain blocked between Imphal and Churachandpur, tribal MLAs are saying they cannot possibly travel to the city of Imphal. Kuki groups have asked for the postponement of this assembly session, but the session, so far at least, is scheduled to go as planned. Kuki groups are warning in separate statements that if any untoward incident takes place as a result of what they're calling a forced assembly session, then it is the state government that bears the sole responsibility of this happening. The army is having to find alternative routes to get critical supplies, including medical supplies, to those who live in the hill areas, especially Churachandpur. Even as the tension, the divisions show no signs of abating. We are now seeing the Biren Singh government working on a plan which looks at offering greater autonomy to the hill areas. Those are the tribal dominated areas. The Kuki groups, of course, have been demanding a separate administration. The Meitei groups have been saying, no question of this, the territorial integrity of Manipur cannot actually be tampered with. What is the road ahead? Is there a road ahead? Are things better since we returned from being on the ground in Manipur? Let's go across to our guest today. Let's introduce on the program one of Manipur's best known human rights activists, peace activists. I welcome to the program Babloo Loitongbam. Welcome very much, Babloo, to this program. Let me start by asking you whether you think there's any improvement at all in the ground situation. We were, of course, there some days ago, but since then, do you believe things are quietening down, or do you believe tensions are still very high?
Well, Barkha, I think the level of violence has come down slightly. However, just a few days ago, yesterday, there was the burning of several houses in Chekon area, where there's a mixed population of Kuki and Meitei. Both the Kuki houses and Meitei houses are being burned down. Today, there was also very strong rumor that came out saying that at least 20 school children were kidnapped. But the social media is still amok, and things are not very certain whether this was a fake one or a real one. But there were tensions in the periphery of the Malom area. There was active chasing going on. People were running around trying to find out whether actually there was a van with children kidnapped or not.
Do we have any clarity on this? Because I just want to be very careful with this, because if 20 children are missing, it would cause a lot of tension. And if it's fake news, then we don't want to be further propagating it.
Absolutely. No, I would like to clarify that the police have just came out with a statement that this is not true.
Thank God.
Even though there
Thank God
was
for that. Yeah.
even though there was a case of two girls being taken in a van, this kidnapping story is not true, and they have kind of jumped out of the van and they are in the police custody, they are told. But this is not a communal thing where the Kukis are kidnapping Meitei.
I just want to underline that for anybody watching this, the police have rebutted social media rumors that 20 children were taken hostage in any way. And Babloo is telling us that these are the kind of things that happen in a high tension situation. Rumors spread like wildfire. And so it's very important for us to underline and doubly underline that the police have said that this rumor is not true, and it has nothing to do with the clash between Kukis and Meiteis. Babloo, let me talk about the assembly session that has actually been called for the 29th of August, that is tomorrow. What are your own views of holding an assembly session in such a situation? One view could be that people need to talk amongst themselves. The assembly is a place where Kuki and Meiteis can actually start a dialogue, as should happen within an elected institutional structure. The other view is, as the Kuki groups are arguing, how do we come to Imphal? We don't feel safe in the valley. How do you see it?
Well, I think there are two criticisms that is coming on this particular assembly session. One is the one that you have just mentioned, the Kuki MLA saying that they don't feel secure enough to come to Imphal for having the session. The other criticism that's coming from the Congress party, which is the only opposition party now, is that this is too short, because one day, most of the time will be taken for other formalities like uh, giving obituary to people, the MLAs who have expired, and there will be only very few hours left for actual substantive discussion on the issue. So I think the Kuki MLA's question can perhaps be taken care of. I mean, there are enough troops on the ground. I think it is more a lack of political will to participate in a process when so much violence has happened and no healing process whatsoever has begun. I think the security.
Do you personally agree with the assembly? Okay, let me put it to you like this: can the assembly be the beginning of a healing process, or do you
Absolutely.
believe some healing process needs to come before the assembly session?
Well, I think it's not either or. I think it is both are possible. Depend on how we manage and kind of the detailing of it is what is important. You can always make the Kuki MLA feel secure enough to come and have a dialogue. I mean, we have enough helicopter in place. We have more than enough uh, boots on the ground. I mean, 60,000 plus security forces have come into Manipur now. So that should not be a primary constraint.
So you would welcome the convening of the assembly, Bablu?
I would think that institutions need to stand up to these communal clashes, and I think this can definitely be a platform where people can deliberate upon and dissect in a proper way. I think enough time should be given, and proper
But
security
suppose
arrangement should be done.
suppose the assembly does meet and the Kuki legislators do not come to it. It would be no point.
Well, it would definitely be a kind of a signal, a very clear signal that the cookies are now, in fact, wanting a separate process and not cooperating with the Manipur government institutions. Uh, but on the other hand, this can also be used. I mean, I think why the opposition are saying that there is not enough time is also, I think this is a time when we can fix responsibility and discuss where things went so wrong, and rather than just speaking in the media, perhaps that can be one area where this can be dissected. Unfortunately, the parliament option is gone already, and perhaps the only option left is in the Supreme Court, which is going on, but there are obviously very severe limitations on what Supreme Court can do in these kind of political questions. And I would think that this democratic institution needs to be used to the optimum to seek a solution. And how they package it and what is the negotiation that is going on with the Kuki MLA is, of course, very, very critical. And if they can be persuaded to come and put their grievances on record in the assembly, I think nothing like it. Then we are restoring some democratic institutions in the state.
So, Bablu, of course, I very much hope that things have improved since I was there a couple of weeks ago. But when I was there, one of the things that the Kuki groups raised again and again was the inability to take the bodies of those they had lost to violence, to rape, to pillage, and of course, both communities suffered enormously. To bring those bodies back home because they were lying in hospital morgues in Imphal. The mass burial also that was being planned by Kuki groups has, to the best of my knowledge, still not taken place. Now, my question to you is, if families can't come and take their dead home, the MLAs that are Kuki might argue that if people can't take their dead home and bid a last farewell to them, how can they participate? How can they go up and down on that highway? You're saying it's possible because air charters do exist.
I think, of course, helicopters. I mean,
Yes,
Rahul Gandhi took a helicopter to go to Churachandpur. Why can't
yes.
and constantly the chief minister and his cabinet colleagues are going to Delhi on chartered flights. There are more than enough helicopters which can land in the assembly session is big enough for helicopters to have make a makeshift helipad there, and it is not impossible. I think the question, I think, I think the logistic of it can be worked out very easily. What is more difficult is the political question. Is there a space to dialogue, or is the wall so entrenched that any face-to-face dialogue is not possible? Logistics, I think, is a simpler question.
I think that's a fair point. Let me ask you this. You are somebody who's from the Meitei community, but you've always spoken for human rights, equal rights for all. Today, what would build a bridge between the two communities? You know, we've tried in our own way. We've had a young Kuki and a young Meitei talk. We've had friends talk. I have been to villages where a farmer holding a gun has told me, my best friend, he was a Meitei, and he said, my best friend is a Kuki, and today we don't talk about politics. Similarly, I have met school-going boys in the Kuki-dominated villages talking about wanting to join the Indian Army. So this is, I mean, I think there is a basic humanism that can be invoked. The question is, how do we begin that process, Babu?
You know, Barkha, I think the biggest problem today is the kind of completely isolated echo chambers. There's an echo chamber within the Kukis, there's an echo chamber within the Meitei, and the
Yes.
twine cell never met kind of a situation.
Yes.
The constant dehumanization of the other is going on both sides. But I mean, what is hopeful is that there are still people who are still trying to make the bridge. I can mention, for example, Kim Gangte, former MP, who is a Kuki person, but she has been talking about a middle path for which
Yes.
she's getting a lot of flags from her own community. I mean, I think the dominant community, the dominant narrative that is in circulation in both the community are this war narrative of trying to,
Yes.
destroy the other, annihilate the other. But within both the communities, I think there are enough people who are saying that this is complete madness, this is nonsense. We have to find a way to make a
Absolutely.
bridge. I
Uh,
think these voices needs to be uh,
I
brought
think that's a
out in the
very,
public,
very important,
amplified.
yeah, very important point. That those who are speaking for reconciliation, instead of, as I found in Manipur, there was a very militarized language used by both communities, talks of guns, ammunition, war, bunkers, and all of this actually exists. I mean, it's not even just language. Our police armories are being looted, and there is, thousands of weapons in circulation. Babloo, do you believe that heads must roll before reconciliation can begin? I ask you this because I was looking at the India Today See Voter Mood of the Nation survey, and there was one question on, who do you think is responsible for what has gone wrong in Manipur? Can we take the banner off, please, so we can see this properly? And this says, 30% actually held the center responsible, 25% held the state government responsible, which felt counterintuitive to me because I would have thought most people would have blamed the state government, and the communities themselves 20%. What next? An overwhelming majority seems to believe that president's rule would be a good idea. So far, I don't think that's happening. If it had to happen, I think it would have happened by now. But I ask you the same question. Do heads need to roll before we can start talking about a peace process, before we can start talking about reconciliation?
I think, Barkha, the stalemate now is very clear to my mind. The Kukis are saying that we will not talk to the present Chief Minister, Mr. Biren Singh. Uh, uh, President's rule, again, even though your poll is showing a high percentage, I think it may be counterproductive from if we look at it from BJP's point of view itself.
Yeah.
BJP, I mean, president's rule sometimes makes the confrontation between the center and the people straight. So I think a via media, a kind of a middle path would be to have a person from within the BJP to take charge of the situation and let
So you want
Biren
a
Singh
you want
rest
a
for a
kind of
little.
you want Biren
I,
Singh to take a back seat and someone to become the peace interlocutor, as it were.
exactly. I think that
But do you
seems
mean
to my
Biren Singh
mind the
should
only.
step down as chief minister or just take a back seat?
I think it is up to him to be. I mean, I am no one to prescribe.
Yes.
Who should go and who should not go. It's the BJP themselves who have to decide and their own MLAs. But it would be very useful if he doesn't want to step down from chief minister. At least why can't they have one person or two-person or three-person to kind of be the go-between and try and talk out with the angry MLAs, 10 MLAs, Kuki MLAs present therein. I mean, their earlier attempt of putting 51 people as a peace committee is almost like an assembly. I think it was a little impractical. But
Yes.
what is stopping them in trying to reach out to this? I mean, angry BJP
But
MLAs to begin with
Bablu,
before we
but
even start off.
these MLAs were their allies, and one of them was a BJP MLA. I met him in Delhi. He was, as you know, crippled and paralyzed. I'm talking about Mr. Balte, Wungzagin
Right.
Balte, barely able to speak. He's a little better now. These are pictures from a little bit earlier. And I think what they're saying is that look, even powerful people or people in places of power are not safe. You are going on saying that what we need, therefore, is to talk to these 10 Kuki legislators by somebody other than Biren Singh, a BJP leader other
Absolutely.
than Biren Singh.
Absolutely. I think you have to appoint someone. Someone should be given the mandate to be able to negotiate with them. Again, privately, probably there are a lot of conversations. That is one thing. Getting the mandate from the government is another. I think one has to think of, I mean, some of, I mean, the ways of in which you can at least bring some kind of a negotiation. Otherwise, how long are we going to stay in this standoff? It's already almost 4 months, and people on the ground are suffering like anything, people
Yeah,
who have lost their homes, but also people who are just volunteering in this conflict. I mean, the kind of very heavy warmongering is going on. People are having sleepless night for months
yeah,
together, no proper food, children not going to schools. I mean, it is complete dislocation of normal life. I think it is
yeah.
the responsibility of any government to, I mean, first of all, to protect the lives of the people. They were not able to do it. Their properties were not uh, taken care of. But the dismal condition in which the displaced people are living in the camps are also, it looks like that the state has completely abdicated their responsibility to protect the civilians, the citizens of who have, on whose mandate they have got the power and enjoy uh,
and
the state.
and it should be stressed that what you call volunteers, in some cases we're actually talking about child combatants. There are children or boys younger than 18 who are in rifle pits with guns, and I think the moment that happens, one should press the accelerator urgently on any peace process, on any peace attempt. Now I want to ask you about, of course, there are back channel talks, there are front channel visible talks, there are back channel talks. Now the Kuki groups say we will stop at nothing short of a separate administration. The Indian Express reports that the Biren Singh government may be willing to offer a greater autonomy. Where do you see the contours of a formula taking shape that is practical, but that will be accepted to both sides?
I think this is not a very easy task, but it is not also impossible. I think, uh, see, the trying to draw a line on the map of Manipur is always going to be a little controversial, particularly on ethnic lines, because there are layers and layers of history. It's not only Kuki and Meitei, but also the Nagas, because Naga considered many of the land that are de facto under the control of the Kuki today as their ancestral land. And therefore, any kind of formalization of that land as Kuki land to them is a big historical blunder. And I mean, they have articulated Kukis as their tenants, who they have accepted them to be there, but the land doesn't belong to them. So these issue will definitely come up. And of course, the other question is how much autonomy is also going to be little, a contentious issue. The whole issue of introduction of sixth schedule into Manipur have also been a matter of great, contestation. What would be the nature of that autonomy is something that not only Meitei and Kuki needs to work. I think a tripartite process of the Nagas, Meiteis, and Kuki. I mean, in principle, I agree that everybody should have their own self-governance. But when you draw a line on the map on ethnic lines, it is never possible. I mean, never without controversy. We all heard about how Redcliffe tried very hard. That was even easier because it was
Hmm.
religion and it
Yeah.
can be easily marked out. But the concept of Naga and Kuki, again, there are a lot of coterminous tribes. Many tribes are sometimes identified as Nagas, sometimes identified as Kukis. So to draw a line on the map and say this is Naga territory and Kuki territory is definitely going to be a vexed issue. But I think perhaps, I mean, an attempt can be made, and let's see how it works out. Rather than prescribing immediately, perhaps a process on how this can be determined might be a better way
Yeah.
to go forward. Yeah.
One of the major demands from the Meitei community is hold, an NRC exercise. Draw up a register, separate those who have come in from Myanmar recently from those who are genuinely sort of indigenous people native to Manipur. Now, how do you look at this demand? Because one of the two Manipur members of parliament, and one, of course, is a Naga. He's a Naga leader. He said that he thought that the Kuki should accept this because that the Kuki people have routinely argued that we are falsely being called infiltrators. That there are only approximately 2,000 people who've actually come in from Myanmar. The bulk of them have actually gone into Mizoram since 2021, and therefore this demand should be accepted. I just wonder whether in this sort of charged environment where communities are holding guns against each other, whether this is the time to talk about this.
Well, Barkha, as you have already seen in Assam, NRC is only half the problem. Even if you have undergone an NRC process and you identify certain people on the basis of some document that they are genuine citizen and not genuine citizen, the question comes after identification, what? Is it possible practically under the present kind of international law to push out a large number of people back to their original home or original what is purportedly their country of origin? Then I think we might end up with a situation like what we are seeing in the Rakhine state, trying to push out the Rohingya. Uh,
Hmm.
it is good to, of course, identify who are the genuine citizens and who are not. But the problem is, after that, what is also something that we need to be very much aware of. The other thing is the complexity of the Myanmar people coming into India. I think there are three levels of problems. One
Hmm.
is, in the olden days when Manipur was an independent kingdom, we had a Foreigners Act where people coming from Myanmar as well as India were scrutinized. This was dropped in the 1950s. And then after that, uh, I mean, the Foreigners Act that is there for the rest of the country comes into play. The problem is that in the this border between India and Burma, starting from the Bangladesh, India, Myanmar tri-junction, right up to the China-India, uh, 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 Myanmar tri-junction, we this is the border which is most neglected of all the borders in the country. And therefore, this slow movement of people have been going on for many, many years together. And, and the fear is that today, in the particular kind of ethnic equilibrium between the Naga, Kuki, and Meitei, there is a fear, perhaps based on certain facts or perhaps more uh, hyped up, that can be uh, kind of clarified only after a proper study. But the truth is, gradually the number of Kuki MLAs is increasing and the Naga MLAs are decreasing from
Hmm.
12 to 10 for the Nagas and from 8 to 10 for the Kukis. And there is a general fear, and also there's a sudden, increase in population in certain districts in the census. So this
But
has
what would
created a lot
explain
of.
what would explain that? Because if I look at the official figures only tell us that there are little over 2,000 infiltrators who have come in, and I know a lot of the Meitei groups talk about a demographic change. Are you saying that how would you explain
No, no,
that?
no.
How would you explain, for
Well,
example, that there
well,
are more?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
this 2,000 people is something that a subcommittee which was formed recently, this year
Yes.
itself, has identified as clearly Burmese who have come recently. But again, I mean, I was good, and the demographic spike, it has to come from a proper study of the voter list, for example. Many new people were enlisted in voter list, and people who are not there in the voter list are also present. I mean, I would keep that exercise for a much more competent commission to conduct. But this 3,000 thing that often quoted is what was
Yes.
identified by this subcommittee. But this is not an exhaustive process, and therefore it will require a much more objective analysis. But after a few months of this process happening, this subcommittee have also been kind of derailed, and it has not taken place.
So,
Barkha,
so
just if I may,
are you saying that the fear of demographic change is a genuine one in your assessment?
there is definitely a fear of demographic change. But I was going to come to the third category, Barkha,
Yes.
which is people who have fled Myanmar after 2021 coup because of fear of persecution of the military junta. Many of the pro-democracy activists, many of the MPs and MLAs from this area are also in Moreh, as they are in Mizoram. And these people requires a different treatment altogether, because they are democracy fighters, and they are here as asylum seekers and not as illegal immigrants as claimed by many people. In fact, the Manipur High Court have come out with a very good judgment in a case that Nandita Haksar has filed, saying that
Yes.
the right to life that is guaranteed by the Constitution is available to all the people. And this principle of non-reforma, meaning that people cannot be pushed back to a country where they will be suffering persecution, it should be read as a part of our Article 21 of our Constitution. And therefore, many of these people who are fleeing for fear of persecution, for doing non-violent resistance against the military junta, should be treated as refugee. And many of them were given access to go and apply for refugee status in the UNHCR. So these category of people requires a treatment which is very, very different. And unfortunately, all these issues are conflated, and there's a considerable confusion. And therefore, this kind of response of brushing everyone in one category is creating more trouble than it
Absolutely.
actually solves.
Let me ask you finally, if you were to get 2 minutes to talk to the Prime Minister and you would want to give him one urgent feedback, what would that feedback be? Where should the center be prioritizing its attention at this moment?
I think the first is to stop the violence that is going on in the periphery. Two is to lift this internet ban. I think it is already counterproductive now, 4 months too long without any tangible result. Third is start a dialogue at multiple levels, MLAs level, civil society level, and at the grassroots levels. I think these are the three prescriptions that I will give if I have a minute with the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Babloo Loitongbam. I think, as you said, it's not very easy to be measured and look for a middle path in this heightened crisis. And I thank you for attempting to do that in this conversation. Thank you, and let's see how the assembly session actually goes tomorrow. Whether it begins a process of healing. I hope whatever happens, it doesn't set anything back. Thank you very much, and take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Barkha.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.